I found my father's secret will at my sister's engagement party. It changed everything. My name is Elise Marrow, and this is the story of how a single sheet of paper tucked inside a velvet box shattered the family. I thought I knew. It happened at my sister Nora's engagement party, under the glow of fairy lights and the clink of crystal glasses, when I uncovered my father's secret will, a document that erased me from my inheritance and handed my $600,000 Seattle loft to Nora. But that wasn't the worst part. They'd already scrubbed my name from family records, tried to sell my home without a whisper. And when I fought back, they painted me as the villain in a viral video. Justice, I've learned, doesn't always come with a bang. Sometimes it's as quiet as a locked door or a folded letter left behind. Before we dive in, what's the time where you are? And have you ever had to choose your peace over the family you share blood with? Share below, because this story twists in ways you won't see coming. It was a crisp October evening in Portland, Oregon, 2024, the kind where the air carries the scent of wet leaves and distant wood smoke. I stood on the balcony of a waterfront venue overlooking the Willamette River, its surface catching the city's lights like scattered stars. My sister Nora's engagement party buzzed behind me, a spectacle of wealth and ambition that felt more like a political fundraiser than a celebration of love. I'd driven 3 hours from my loft in Seattle, my beat-up Honda Civic looking like an intruder among the polished Audis and Lexuses lining the lot. I wore a forest green dress, simple but tailored, with a single silver bangle I'd bought myself after landing my first major freelance graphic design contract. In my hand was a velvet box, a gift for Nora, a custom-engraved locket bearing her initials and those of her fiancé, Caleb, a rising political star. I wasn't here to compete with the grandeur. I just wanted to show up for my sister, like I always had, even when it hurt. Inside the venue was a vision of excess, crystal chandeliers hung like frozen waterfalls, casting prisms across tables draped in ivory linen. A string quartet played Vivaldi, their notes threading through the hum of laughter and the clatter of champagne flutes. I approached the check-in table, where a young woman in a tailored blazer held a tablet glowing with a guest list. Name, she asked. Her smile polite but fleeting. Elise Marrow, I said, shifting the gift box to my other hand. She tapped the screen, then paused, her brow furrowing. You're listed as guest of Marrow family. No individual entry. A familiar unease twisted in my chest. That's strange. Can you check again? She turned the tablet toward me. There it was, Marrow family, followed by Nora, my parents, Evelyn and Roland, my cousin Lila, even Caleb's parents, at the bottom, in smaller font. Guest of family, my name was absent. I forced a laugh, though it felt hollow. Guess I'm the mystery +1. She hesitated, her pen hovering. I can update it if you'd like. No, it's fine, I said, pinning the generic badge to my dress. It tugged at the fabric, a small but persistent weight over my heart. The ballroom thrummed with energy. Nora, radiant in a cream silk gown, glided from guest to guest. Caleb at her side, his smile as polished as his cufflinks. My mother, Evelyn, held court near the bar, her laughter bright and practiced. The perfect political matriarch, my father, Roland, stood by a floor-to-ceiling window, his posture rigid, nodding at a business associate with a glass of scotch in hand. I wove through the crowd, offering smiles that weren't always returned, my heels clicking softly on the hardwood. My seat was at table 12, tucked behind a pillar near the service door, where waitstaff bustled with trays of smoked salmon and miniature quiches. The place setting was off-fork misaligned, napkin folded into a lopsided rose that seemed to droop under the harsh light spilling from the kitchen. I adjusted it absently, my fingers lingering on the linen, its creases soft and imperfect. From here, I could barely see the head table, but I could hear Nora's laughter, the toasts, the pop of another champagne cork. "Future Senator Caleb," someone shouted. Raising a glass, Evelyn beamed, her voice carrying to every corner. "Our Nora's marrying a visionary. They're building a legacy together." Roland caught my eye once, his gaze cool and fleeting, like he was noting my presence without acknowledging it. I sipped my water, the glass cold against my palm, and tried to shake the feeling that I was an afterthought in their galaxy. The napkins rose, half unraveled, stared back at me, a small, sad thing on fine china. The lights dimmed, and a spotlight hit the stage. The MC, a man with a voice like warm velvet, took the microphone, and now, a special moment. "Please welcome Elise Marrow to share a few words." My stomach dropped. No one had told me to prepare a speech. Heads turned, eyes pinning me as I stood, my heels clicking too loudly in the sudden quiet. Nora smiled from the head table, but it was tight, performative. Evelyn's expression was unreadable, her lips a perfect curve. Roland leaned back, one arm draped over his chair, watching me like a predator sizing up prey. I reached the microphone, the spotlight blinding. No one handed me a script or a cue card. Behind me, a screen flickered to life, and a video montage began to play. It was Nora's life in Technicolor, her first ballet recital, twirling in a pink tutu, her high school valedictorian speech, confident and poised, her law school graduation, shaking hands with the dean, her volunteering for Caleb's Senate campaign, smiling beside him at rallies. My mother's voice narrated, warm and proud. Nora was always our star, destined to shine brighter than anyone. Roland's voice followed, steady and commanding. "She's the kind of leader you don't teach. It's in her blood." My hands tightened at my sides, nails digging into my palms. Not a single frame showed me, not the late nights I'd spent designing Nora's campaign flyers for free, my laptop glowing until dawn, not the $50, $1,000 I'd wired her when her legal startup tanked. No questions asked, not the weekends I'd driven across state lines to help her move into her first apartment, hauling boxes while she planned her next step. I stood there, smiling through the erasure, because frowning would have given them a reason to call me bitter. The video ended with Nora and Caleb embracing at a campaign event, gold text flashing across the screen. A future built on love and leadership. The crowd applauded, some standing, others clapping with enthusiasm. Evelyn rose, clapping as she approached the stage, her heels clicking like a metronome. "And now," she said, her voice dripping with sweetness. A few words from Nora's devoted sister. I leaned into the microphone, my throat dry. "Nora, you've always had a way of lighting up a room. I'm so proud of." Evelyn cut me off, laughing as if we were all in on a joke. "Oh, Elise, why don't you tell everyone about your gift? Wouldn't it be perfect if you gave Nora the keys to your Seattle loft tonight?" The room stilled. A glass clinked somewhere. A phone camera flashed, its light cutting through the haze. My pulse roared in my ears. What I whispered, not into the microphone, just to her. She kept smiling, her eyes sharp. "You know, that gorgeous loft you're barely in, you're always traveling for work. Nora and Caleb need a home base for their campaign. It's only logical." Roland's voice boomed from his seat, carrying over the murmurs. "Come on, Elise, it's just a formality. You don't need all that space." It wasn't a request, it was a public ambush. designed to corner me. The crowd shifted, some looking away, others leaning in, their faces a mix of curiosity and discomfort. Nora stared at her plate, her fork still. Caleb adjusted his tie, his eyes anywhere but mine. This wasn't disgust. I said into the microphone, my voice sharper than I'd intended. A few gasps rippled through the room, some sympathetic, others embarrassed. Evelyn waved a hand, her smile unwavering. Don't be dramatic, sweetheart. It's a family gift, a gesture of love. I could have listed every sacrifice, every check I'd written, every favor I'd done, every time I'd put their needs above mine, but I didn't. The words caught in my throat, heavy as stones. Instead, I set the microphone down, the soft thud echoing in my chest. I stepped off the stage, my hands trembling, and headed for the exit. The velvet gift box still clutched in my hand, but Roland was waiting by the dessert table, his face a mask of barely contained fury. Evelyn hovered behind him, a champagne flute in hand, whispering, "She's humiliated us in front of everyone." I slowed, sensing a trap. The polished hardwood reflected the chandeliers, making the room feel like a distorted mirror. Roland grabbed a champagne bottle from the table, his knuckles white around the neck. I thought he was reaching for a refill until he turned, swift and deliberate, and swung it. The base grazed my cheek, pain exploding like a firework. I stumbled, blood dripping onto my dress, the green fabric blooming dark. The room gasped, a collective intake of breath. Phones lifted, their screens glowing as they recorded. No one moved to help. "You ungrateful child," Evelyn hissed, her voice low but venomous. "We gave you everything." My cousin Lila, always the quiet one, shouted, "Someone call 911." Her voice cracked, but she stayed rooted, her hands twisting her napkin. I pressed a hand to my cheek, blood warm against my fingers. The pain was sharp, but the betrayal burned deeper, a wound no stitches could close. I walked out, past Nora's averted eyes, past Caleb's silence, past the guests who'd rather film than act. Outside, the river air was cold, grounding. I called an Uber, my hands shaking but deliberate. The driver glanced at my face, his eyes flickering with concern, but he said nothing, just drove me to the ER. In the hospital, under harsh fluorescent lights, I filled out forms alone, smearing ink with the edge of my bandage. The nurse, a woman with kind eyes and a gentle touch, pressed gauze to my cheek. "Anyone coming for you?" I shook my head. "Just me." She nodded, her silence heavy with understanding. I leaned back on the cot, staring at the ceiling tiles, their sterile whiteness a blank slate. That was the last time I'd show up for them, I vowed. But as I closed my eyes, a memory flickered a moment from earlier that night, when I'd set the gift box on the dessert table to adjust my dress. Roland had been nearby, his hands lingering near my purse, and the velvet box. It hadn't felt as light when I picked it up again. The morning after Nora's engagement party, I woke in my friend Mara's guest room in Portland, the stitches on my cheek pulling tight with every heartbeat. The room was soft with dawn light, filtered through linen curtains, but the air felt heavy, like it was holding its breath. Mara had left a glass of water and a note on the nightstand. "Take your time. I'm here." My phone sat beside it, its screen a grid of notifications. None from Nora, Evelyn, or Roland. A shaky video of the incident had spread online. My stumble, the blood on my dress, the crowd's gasps as Roland's champagne bottle connected with my face. I swiped the notifications away, my hands steadier than I expected. I sat up, wincing as the bandage tugged at my skin, and reached for my purse. The velvet box Nora's unopened gift was still inside, its weight heavier than I remembered. I hadn't thought much of it last night, too dazed by pain and betrayal. But now, in the quiet of Mara's guest room, that fleeting memory gnawed at me, Roland lingering near my purse by the dessert table, his hands brushing the box. I pulled it out, the fabric soft but cold, and opened it slowly. The locket I'd designed for Nora gleamed inside, its silver surface etched with her and Caleb's initials. But beneath it, tucked into the lining, was a folded piece of paper, its edges worn like it had been handled too many times. I unfolded it, my breath catching. It was a will, dated 6 months ago. In Roland's precise handwriting, the words hit like a second blow. All assets, including the Seattle loft titled to Elise Marrow, are hereby transferred to Nora Marrow upon my death. Elise Marrow is to receive no inheritance. A handwritten note in Evelyn's scrawl was clipped to it. She'll never fight back. My hands shook, not with fear but with clarity. This wasn't just about the loft. They'd planned to erase me entirely, to rewrite me out of their legacy before I could even protest. I set the will on the bed, staring at it like it might vanish if I blinked. The locket gleamed beside it. A cruel irony, a gift I'd poured my heart into, now a vessel for their betrayal. I reached for my purse again, a routine check to ground myself. Wallet, phone, lip balm, a crumpled receipt from a coffee shop, but no loft key. The spare I always kept clipped to the side pocket was gone. I dumped the contents onto the bed, searching every fold. My pulse climbing. Nothing. My mind flashed to a week earlier. At a tense family brunch in Portland's West End, Roland had accidentally grabbed my purse, laughing it off as a mix-up with Evelyn's. "My eyes aren't what they used to be," he'd said, handing it back with a grin that didn't reach his eyes. I hadn't checked the pocket then. I hadn't thought I needed to. My phone buzzed, snapping me back. An unknown number. I answered, more instinct than curiosity. "Hello, Ms. Marrow. This is Claire from Pacific Realty. Just confirming your 3P, Emmy, walkthrough for the loft listing today. We'll meet at the lobby unless you prefer the lockbox." My stomach plummeted. I didn't list my loft. A pause. The sound of papers shuffling. "It's scheduled under your name. Co-signed by Roland Marrow. The title matches your property at 1420 Pine Street. Seattle. I never authorized this," I said, my voice low. Controlled. "Cancel it." Claire hesitated. "Would you like me to remove the listing entirely?" I said, and hung up before she could respond. I sat on the edge of the bed, elbows on my knees, the will staring back at me. They weren't just humiliating me in public, they were dismantling my life, piece by piece. With a confidence that said they thought I'd stay silent, I opened my laptop and drafted an email to Jenna Holt, a lawyer I'd met at a networking event last spring. Subject urgent, family, trying to steal my property. Jenna. It's Elise Marrow. We met at the Women in Business brunch. My parents are trying to sell my Seattle loft without my consent. They have a key I didn't authorize. And I just found a will that cuts me out of everything. Can we talk today? I hit send, grabbed my coat, and drove to Seattle by 1 p.m. I stood outside my loft with a locksmith, the October sun sharp against the back of my neck. The door showed faint scratches near the handle, subtle but fresh, like someone had fumbled with a key they weren't used to. "Someone's been here," the locksmith said, his voice matter-of-fact. "Want a deadbolt?" "Yes," I said. "And a security camera." As he worked, I leaned against the hallway wall, my eyes fixed on the scratches. Not a break-in, Not forced entry, just access. Casual and entitled. The kind that made your skin crawl. My phone buzzed again. An email from Evelyn. Subject, let's talk. Elise, we love you. This has gone too far. Come to the house tomorrow at 2 p.m. Just family. No guests. Let's fix this. Mom, I stared at the words. A flicker of hope, battling the cold truth in my gut. I wanted to believe her. To think there was a way back to the family we'd once been. But the will, the missing key, the realtor's call, they weren't accidents. They were a script. And I was tired of playing my part. That night, I barely slept. The new locks and camera offered some reassurance. But the violation lingered. A shadow that moved with me. I reheated leftover soup, the steam curling in the quiet of my loft, and sat on the couch with the velvet box beside me. I didn't open it again. I didn't need to. The will's words were burned into my mind. At 7 a.m. My phone buzzed with a text from an unfamiliar number. Check your mail. You need to see this. Theo. My cousin Theo. Lila's older brother. Hadn't spoken to me in years. Not since he'd moved to Boise after a falling out with Roland over a business deal. I frowned, grabbing my keys, and headed to the lobby mailbox. Tucked between bills and junk mail was a small padded envelope. No return address. Inside was a USB drive and a note in Theo's scrawled handwriting. Found this in Dad's old files. It's about you. Back in my loft. I plugged the USB into my laptop. My hands unsteady. It contained a single folder labeled Marrow Finances. Inside were scanned documents, bank statements, loan agreements, and a ledger from 2010. My name appeared repeatedly, tied to a $200 loan I'd taken out to save my parents' Portland house from foreclosure. I'd paid it off over years, dipping into my savings, working extra contracts, while Evelyn promised it was just temporary. The ledger showed something else. Roland had used the house as collateral for a secret business loan, defaulted, and never told me the debt, now $300 with interest, was still in my name. I leaned back, the air too thick to breathe. I'd saved their home, and they'd turned it into a noose around my neck. My phone buzzed again, a second text from Theo. They've been hiding this for years. I didn't know until last week. Call me. I dialed his number, my voice tight. Theo, what is this? He sighed, his voice rough with fatigue. I was cleaning out Dad's old office and found a box of Roland's papers. He'd asked Dad to store them years ago. Said it was sensitive. I didn't think much of it until I saw your name. They've been using you. Elise, that loan. The house, it's all on you. And they're acting like it's theirs. Why now, I asked. Why tell me now? He hesitated. I saw the video from the party. I didn't know they'd go that far. I should have said something sooner. I closed my eyes, the weight of his words settling. Thank you. Theo, there's more, he said. Check the last file on the drive. I opened it, a grainy scan of a letter from Roland to his lawyer, dated 2 years ago. Ensure Elise's name is removed from all family trusts. She's too independent. A liability to Nora's future. The word liability cut deeper than the bottle had. I hung up, my hand steady now, and drove to Portland. By 2:15 p.m., I pulled into my parents' driveway. The house was as pristine as ever manicured lawn, solar lights glowing softly, a porch swing that hadn't moved in years. Evelyn opened the door before I knocked, her arms outstretched, her hug a degree too cold. Elise, sweetheart, thank you for coming. The living room was staged, like a set from a holiday movie. Fresh lilies on the coffee table. my favorite lemon scones arranged on a porcelain plate, framed photos I hadn't seen in years, me and Nora at the beach, me in a high school art show. Smiling with a paintbrush, Nora sat on the couch, her engagement ring catching the light. Her hands folded tightly. Caleb wasn't there. Roland emerged from the hallway, carrying a leather folder, his smile too smooth, too practiced. "We've been thinking," Roland said, setting the folder on the table, "about how to keep things fair. We don't want more misunderstandings. So we drafted something. I didn't touch it." "What is it?" "Just a way to clarify family boundaries," Evelyn said, her voice soft but calculated, "so no one gets hurt again." I opened the folder slowly. Inside was a property transfer agreement for my loft. The language, cold and legal asset clarification, mutual understanding, transfer to Nora Marrow. My chest tightened. "You're asking me to sign away my home?" Evelyn's smile didn't falter. "It's just paperwork. Dear, you don't need that loft. You're always on the move." Roland leaned forward. "You're not even reading it. Don't you trust us?" I closed the folder, setting it beside the scones. "You invited me here under the pretense of reconciliation. The flowers, the photos, the scones. It's all a performance." Nora spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. "It's just property." Elise. I looked at her. The sister I'd loved. The one I'd sacrificed for. "It's not about property. It's about what you think I'm worth." Evelyn's smile vanished. "Don't be ungrateful. We've done everything for you." I stood, the will's words echoing in my mind. "This isn't a family. It's a transaction." I turned to the door, pausing only to look back at Roland. "I found your will. I know what you're planning." His face didn't change, but his eyes flickered. A crack in the facade. No one followed me out. In my car, I called Jenna. "File everything. They're not getting away with this." That night, a text arrived from an unknown number. "You're not the only one they've erased. Meet me tomorrow." Aunt Clara, my mother's estranged sister, hadn't been part of our lives since I was a child. Her name was a ghost, whispered only in arguments I wasn't supposed to hear. I stared at the message, the weight of another secret pressing down. The morning after Aunt Clara's cryptic text, I woke to a stillness that felt like the calm before a storm. My Seattle loft was quiet. The new deadbolt and security camera, a small shield against the world outside. The velvet box sat on my kitchen counter. The secret will inside it, a weight I could still feel in my chest. I hadn't responded to Clara yet. But her message, "You're not the only one they've erased," echoed in my mind. A promise of answers I wasn't sure I was ready for. I drove to a small diner in Portland's outskirts, where Clara had asked to meet. The place was a relic faded red booths, a jukebox that hadn't worked in years, and the smell of burnt coffee clinging to the air. Clara sat in the corner, her silver hair pulled into a loose bun, her face lined but sharp, like she'd been carved from the same defiance I was learning to wield. She hadn't been part of our family since I was 10. Exiled after a fight with Evelyn. No one ever explained. Seeing her now felt like meeting a ghost. "Elise," she said, her voice low but warm. "You look like your mother, but you've got my fight." I slid into the booth, clutching my coffee mug. "Why now?" "Clara, what do you know?" She pushed a manila envelope across the table. "This isn't just about you. It's about me. Your grandmother. Anyone who dared to challenge them." Inside were letters, photos, and a handwritten journal page dated 1985. In my grandmother's elegant script, it detailed how Evelyn and Roland had manipulated her into signing over her estate, then cut her out of their lives when she questioned them. A faded photo showed Clara and me as a toddler, laughing at a park. A moment I didn't remember. On the back, in Evelyn's handwriting, "Burn this. They've been rewriting history for decades." Clara said, "I was erased when I called out their greed. Your grandmother was too sick to fight back. You're the first one who's strong enough." I traced the photo's edges, my throat tight. They're trying to sell my loft. They have a will that cuts me out. Clara's eyes darkened. That's their playbook. They isolate, humiliate, then take. But you owned something they forgot about. I frowned. What? The Portland house. She said, "You bought it in 2008. During the foreclosure scare. They never transferred the deed back. It's still in your name." My breath caught. Jenna, my lawyer, had mentioned this, but hearing it from Clara made it real. I'd saved their home, poured my savings into it, and they'd turned it into a weapon. What else, I asked. Sensing she wasn't done, Clara leaned forward. "There's a trust fund your grandmother set up for you, hidden in a private account. Evelyn buried it, thinking you'd never find out. I have the account details. It's yours, Elise. And it's enough to start over." I stared at her, the diner's hum fading. A trust fund, a house, a history of erasure. This wasn't just betrayal, it was a legacy of theft. Why didn't you tell me sooner? She looked away, her fingers tightening around her mug. I was afraid. After they cut me out, I lost everything. I didn't want to drag you into it until I saw that video from the party. You're not alone anymore. I left the diner with the envelope and a new resolve. Back at my loft, I called Jenna. I want to move on the house, file the eviction notice, and look into a trust fund. Under my name, Clara's sending details. Jenna's voice was steady. "You're sure about this?" "Yes." I said, "They don't get to rewrite me anymore." The eviction notice was filed that afternoon. Surgical and quiet. No warnings. No dramatic confrontations. Just a legal envelope that would hit like a thunderclap. 3 days later, the sheriff served it. I wasn't there. But Nora, ever the curator of family optics, posted a grainy security camera video to our extended family group chat. It showed Roland opening the door in a rumpled sweater, a piece of toast in hand. Blinking at the uniformed officer, Evelyn stood behind him, her coffee mug frozen mid-sip, her face a mask of shock. The officer handed them the envelope, his voice too soft for the mic to catch. Roland skimmed the paper, then slammed it against the wall. His shout cut off as the video ended. I watched it once, then closed the app. That night, I sat in my loft, lights off, sipping chamomile tea with honey. The city hummed outside, cars rushing. A distant siren, the faint strum of a busker's guitar. Inside, time felt still. I didn't cry or pace. I just breathed, letting the silence wrap around me like a shield. Then my phone buzzed. A text from Caleb, Nora's fiancé. "They've done worse than you know. Check your email." Attached was a PDF, a scanned contract between Roland and a private lender. Dated last year, it pledged my loft as collateral for a $500,000 loan to fund Caleb's campaign. Signed with a forged version of my signature. Caleb's message followed. "I didn't know until yesterday. I'm sorry." I forwarded it to Jenna, my hand steady. The betrayal wasn't new, but its depth was staggering. They hadn't just planned to take my home, they'd gambled it for political clout. I opened my laptop and saw Evelyn's response, a public video posted to her social media, splicing my engagement party speech with images of Nora's radiant smile. My voice, clipped and shaky, saying, "This wasn't discussed," played over footage of me stumbling after Roland's blow. The caption read, "We raised her with love. She chose betrayal." Hashtag spilled beneath it. Family matters. broken hearts, ungrateful. The comments were a mix of vitriol and speculation. Spoiled daughter. What's the full story? Some kids are never enough. I didn't engage. Instead, I uploaded a folder to a public drive, the secret will, the forged loan contract, bank statements showing my payments for their house, emails begging for one-time loans, no captions, no hashtags, just a folder named Truth. If you care. Then I shut my laptop. I didn't need to watch it spread. The point wasn't vengeance. It was freedom from their silence. The next morning, I drove to the Portland house. The sale was final. The funds wired to my account. A moving truck sat in the driveway. Its back open. Workers hauling unmarked boxes from the garage. The realtor, a brisk woman with a clipboard, nodded as I approached. Everything's cleared out, she said. They left yesterday. I stepped inside, the air heavy with absence. The walls were bare. No photos or paintings. Not even the faint outline of frames. The light filtering through the blinds fell flat, like it had forgotten how to glow. I walked through slowly, tracing the ghosts of memory, the kitchen counter where I'd done homework, the living room corner where I'd built blanket forts, the hallway tile chipped when Nora dropped a lamp and blamed me. On the counter was a letter, my name in Evelyn's sharp cursive. I opened it, expecting venom. You were never ours. No signature. No apology. Just a final cut. I folded it and tucked it into my pocket. Unfeeling, but something made me pause at the hallway closet. A small door no one ever used. Inside was a dusty shoebox. Unmarked. I carried it to the kitchen island and lifted the lid. Inside was a childhood drawing I'd made at 6, a crayon sketch of our family. Me with uneven pigtails. Nora with a lopsided crown. Evelyn and Roland smiling. I'd given it to them for their anniversary. Proud of every wobbly line. Behind it was a napkin, folded into a rose. The same one I'd straightened at the engagement party. Its creases soft but unmistakable. I didn't know why they'd kept it. Maybe guilt. Maybe oversight. But it was mine. A piece of the girl I'd been. Trying to belong. I held the box to my chest for a moment, then handed it to the realtor. This stays with me. She nodded. No questions asked. As I walked to my car, I didn't look back, not at the porch, the roof I'd helped repair, or the door where they'd once waved me off with empty promises. I didn't need to. Back at my loft, Mara came for dinner. We cooked pasta with garlic and thyme. The kitchen warm with the scent of herbs. She brought a bottle of wine and a small jade plant, setting it by the window. You need more life in here, she said. Grinning, we ate slowly, talking about work, books, a documentary she insisted I'd love. The rose napkin sat on the counter, its edges soft. A quiet anchor. My phone buzzed mid-meal. An email from Clara. With the trust fund. Details, $150. $1,000. Untouched. Waiting for me. A second email followed. From an unexpected name, Nora. Subject, I'm sorry, Elise. I didn't see it all. The will. The loan. The lies. I thought I was protecting our family. I was wrong. I'm not asking for forgiveness. Just a chance to make it right. I've left Caleb. The wedding's off. If you ever want to talk, I'm here. I stared at the words. A weight lifting I hadn't known I carried. I didn't reply. Not yet. Instead, I wrote a check to a local women's shelter. Memo line. For new beginnings. I didn't attend Nora's canceled wedding, but I kept her email. A door I might open later. That night, I sat with the rose napkin, smoothing its creases. I thought of the girl I'd been, folding napkins to please a family that never saw me, and the woman I'd become, whole without their approval. I raised a glass to Mara, my voice soft, to building our own tables. She clinked her glass to mine, and never begging for a seat. A week later, a final surprise arrived, a letter from my old art teacher, Ms. Harper, who'd seen my public folder online. "I kept this for you," she wrote. Inside was a photo of me at 16, holding a painting I'd won a state award for, my smile wide and unburdened. A sticky note in her handwriting read, "You were always enough. Elise." I framed it beside the jade plant, the rose napkin beneath it. Justice wasn't in their loss, but in my presence. A quiet power no lie could touch. Sometimes, the deepest wounds come from those who raised us, but the deepest healing comes from choosing ourselves.